Good morning, everyone. Welcome to our webinar today, Vape Reduction Strategies for Ohio Schools. We are not in a time warp. It is November 2nd, so welcome to the webinar. You are in the right place. We're delighted you can join us. My name is Glenn Goldberg. I'm with a company called Parallel Communications, and we work with several of the presenters today. We're here to provide an overview on some of the trends that our experts are seeing regarding vaping in middle school, high school, certainly universities, even elementary schools, and discuss some of the strategies that schools are using to help mitigate vaping. We are recording the webinar. It will be available for use afterwards. If you have questions, you're more than welcome to provide those. There is a Q&A function at the bottom of the menu, and we will get to responding to questions after our speakers deliver the information. Again, welcome. We have several speakers today. We have Bruce Barcello, Director of Implementation of Solder Technologies, Dorian Furman and Meredith Berkman, who are with Parents Against Vaping, Sarah Stapleton, who's principal of Wayne High School in West Virginia. She will provide some insights and some real-world experiences on what vaping has caused her school and some of the strategies the school has used to prevent that or mitigate that. Derek Peterson, who is founder and CEO of Solder Technologies. Solder provides sensors that mitigate vaping in schools. And Mirko Notarangelo, who is the head of marketing of a company called ICAS, which actually implements the technologies. So thank you again for joining. I'm going to turn it over to Bruce Barcello. And Bruce, if you can start the program, that'd be great.
Absolutely. So again, I want to thank you for joining us today. Can you see my slides?
Nope, we don't see them.
Oh, you don't see my slides. Okay. John, can you then pull them up? Hold on,
Yes.
maybe. Can you see it?
Yep.
Okay,
Yes,
perfect. Okay, great. So I just wanted for a brief moment to share a big scope view of what's going on in the state of Ohio. So in the state of Ohio, we're 31st in where we are as far as smoking rates. As a matter of fact, we have the distinction of being one of the states, 13 states, called Tobacco Nation. So that means we have one of 13 states that have the highest smoking rates in the country. This is through Tobacco-Free Kids. So along with it, the state of Ohio takes in $1.2 billion in tobacco revenue. $1.2 billion in tobacco revenue. We spend approximately, last year, almost $15 million in tobacco prevention. It's going to be less. They passed legislation this year to take some of those funds away. This is what's startling to me. We spend, the tobacco industry spends over 429, so almost $430 million in marketing, and that does not even include vaping products. So it's an uphill, it's not an even fight, is it? It's a David and Goliath fight with this industry in what they spend compared to what we as a state can spend to prevent tobacco use and vaping in the state of Ohio. So with just that little bit of background, and I'm going to hold off. Let me stop sharing. If I can. There we go. And get to our dear friends. And I have the opportunity to introduce to you Meredith Berkman and Dorian Furman from Parents Against Vaping. I want to encourage you to take part in and watch Big Vape. It's a Netflix docuseries, and both Meredith and Dorian are present in that. And then Operation Parent is, and just look up Operation Parent, and they are going to host PAVE in a webinar coming up in November 28th. This is PAVE's 5th anniversary, and I can tell you that I'm privileged to have been a volunteer with PAVE for 5 years, and I can't tell you what a privilege it is to introduce them. So I'll be quiet and let them go.
Well, thank you. That's such a beautiful and kind, generous introduction, Bruce. We are really honored to be asked to participate. And as Bruce said, he's been a Parents Against Vaping volunteer all along. And so it's really our honor to be introduced by you, because we talk about friends and family. We really appreciate everything that you do with us and, for and with the public health community in Ohio and across the country. So thank you. I just want to make sure that I can see our slides, because, there we
Took me
go.
a second, but here we go.
So I'm Meredith Berkman.
And I'm Dorian Furman.
We have a third co-founder, Dina Alessi. We're gonna fly through the slides in the interest of time, because there's so many important things that so many of the remarkable people on this call want to tell you. But we'll just I'm going to give you the brief backstory of how Dorian and I ended up in this world. So that is a picture of Dorian's over my shoulder there. That's the moment that we testified before a congressional subcommittee back in 2019 about what brought us to the table. And that is, well, first, we are a national advocacy and education nonprofit powered by remarkable volunteers across the country, including, as Bruce said, Bruce. In 2018, my then 16-year-old son came home from school and told me that there had been what he called a, quote, mixed message anti-addiction talk at school. This was 9th grade, the beginning of high school. He was 16. Dorian's son, I think, was 14 at that time. They were in class together in a new school. And when the teachers and administrators left the room, which is traditional for these anti-addiction talks at the school, so that kids will speak freely about sensitive topics, this supposed educator talked to the kids about juuling, which was something I don't know that I'd ever even heard back in April of 2018. And my son Caleb described that this speaker repeatedly said, it's for adults, not for kids, but it's totally safe. Juul is for adults, not for kids. It's, quote, 99.9% safer than combustible cigarettes. It's getting FDA approval any day. He and Dorian's son, Philip, went up to this man at the end because they thought that was strange, the way it was being presented. This adult took out his Juul, showed the boys how it worked, and called it the iPhone of vapes. Within 24 hours, we discovered this was, in fact, a Juul representative who had come into the school without the school's knowledge through this outside group. And that was our aha moment. And in the days and weeks and months that followed, 3 moms around a kitchen table frantically searching what was this company Juul. We put together a lot of the pieces, and we soon realized that this was not only an incredibly predatory company that had been targeting and marketing to young people through the use of flavors, its stealth by design, nicotine delivery device, but
right,
young influencers,
yes,
etc. So Dorian, take it away.
Yeah, so we wanted to educate parents and tell parents what was happening and what this was. This was 6 months before the Surgeon General and the FDA would declare youth vaping an epidemic. So we started to put together a website. We started to talk to parents and legislators, and we realized that while it was important to educate parents, something that we continue to do to this day, we realized that we also had to inform legislators and our elected officials about what was happening on the ground. And so we started to bring parents, we started with ourselves and our friends, and now we are around the country. We bring parents to legislative sessions, to hearings. We share stories on the ground of what they're experiencing, what their kids are experiencing, and we have parent volunteers around the country who educate in their own community. So today we want to tell you what we're hearing on the ground, what our parents are saying, what they're seeing in schools, as you all know very well. We're followed by an amazing school principal who will tell you what she's seeing. And so this is just lots of parts to a whole. So these are some of our parents And
the education that we do is we do it both in Spanish and in English, and our trainings are also in Spanish and in English. I just want to add that.
yes. And so the adult education, we teach parents why kids vape. Parents don't understand. They say, well, we've taught them that smoking is bad. Kids don't understand that vaping is bad because it was marketed as fun and safe and flavored water vapor, and they didn't understand how addictive it is. So we talk to parents, we tell parents why teens vape, and we teach them what the signs of teen vaping is. Now, if you just have one or two of these 10 signs of teen vaping, doesn't mean your kids are vaping. However, parents really can know sometimes if something is off with their kids. And so these are some of the signs that we tell parents to look for. Of course, if they have 3, 4, 5, then something's happening in their parent, and they should take a look and see what they should talk to their kids about. And this, for instance, is what we hear from some of our parent volunteers. I don't recognize this kid who was a good athlete and a soccer player. He's a stranger in my house. And then another parent, this was during our Clear the Vapor conference from last week, said, I saw it changed who he was. The vape wall went up and I couldn't tear it down. I mean, as parents, we do everything to keep our child safe. And these kids are getting these devices and becoming addicted before even they understand.
Right. I just want to quickly point out that the flip side of that, we had a parent conference, a parent panel at
Those are coming, Meredith.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was just going to say that the flip side of the vape wall went down and I couldn't access my child from the kid's perspective. We had young people sharing that, it's controlling me. Okay, go ahead.
Those slides are coming. We're going to talk about what the kids say too. So again, we teach our parents how to talk to their kids about vaping. We teach them to prep for the conversation, to find the right time. We teach them that it's not a one-time conversation and that they have to start early. We're hearing about kids vaping in elementary school, which you will hear coming up. And they have to speak with their kids often, and they have to use opportunities. For instance, if they're driving down on the road and they see a vape shop, or if they see something on the news, use any opportunity you can to talk to your kids. Again, not a one single approach.
And we're going to be flipping through the slides, but I think that the concept here is that it's really important to educate parents. Parents and schools should be partnered in this, because what we're talking about is a very heavy addiction. And I think that sometimes is the disconnect, even for parents who know that this is a problem in the broader community. First of all, no one ever wants to believe that it's their child. And there's a lot of shame around addiction. And I think that the key here is, we talk a lot about Jewel at the beginning when we do our full presentation. Jewel started the youth vaping epidemic, but unfortunately, many bad actors have followed, and it continues. And so again, the national data, which I think will imminently be updated, but there remain millions of kids, even if that number were to go down tomorrow, but there are millions of kids in high schools and in middle schools who are vaping. And the thing to look at, even more than the numbers, is always the frequency of use. This says more than 25% of the users are vaping daily, and that suggests really high levels of addiction.
Right. And then, we always talk about the use of flavors, because flavors addict kids, and kids don't understand and perceive harm in a product that tastes and smells so good. So more than 85% of kids who vape use flavors. Meredith mentioned the frequency, 40% vape 20 out of 30 days. New numbers came out just a few months ago that shows that 10% of all young adults ages 18 to 24 are vaping. Many of those were part of the initial youth vaping epidemic. They've aged out of the National Youth Tobacco Survey, but they are being captured in other surveys. And more than 10% is more than 3.5 million young adults. And then more concerning than ever, we're hearing people are writing to us reports of kids as young as second grade vaping. Again, it's tragic, and we have to keep an eye on this. Again, Meredith, do you want to talk?
I'm sorry, Dorian. But I think it's this was the part that was so powerful when you hear some of these were young adults who have tried over and over to quit. It feels like an endless loop. We have often heard young people say, I would tell my younger self, don't even start. I mean, because that's the level of addiction that we're talking about. And so I think our message to parents is we certainly believe in rules and guardrails, but remember, we shouldn't be punishing kids for an addiction when we're talking about predatory companies. We should be partnering to support them and help them. And by talking to them about this, rather than saying, do you vape? It's the rare kid, or at least in my house, who's going to say, yes, that vape you found is mine. It's always their friend's vape or their friends are doing it. So the idea is to say, I hear so much about vaping. What is it like when you go to a party? Are kids vaping? Give them an opportunity to trust you, to share with you, so that if there is a problem, they feel that they can come to you for help instead of being secretive. These are some of the devices. It's really important that parents understand what the devices look like. The most popular with teens, unfortunately, right now, and with easy access remaining, are things like Elf Bar. That's the one on my left. These colored, very high nicotine, fruity, disposable vapes. Elf Bar and many of these other disposables are coming in from China. They're pouring in through the ports. FDA has, the Food and Drug Administration has authority at the border with Customs and Border Patrol, but they really, until very recently, have not been doing anything to use that authority. And that's one of the reasons these products remain so accessible.
Right. So, yeah, I'm sorry. What I was going to say is we also hear from teachers regularly. And, as you all probably know, this is not uncommon. My friends who teach in elementary school say that there are 3rd and 4th graders doing it. Another teacher says today we had 3 girls in for vaping. I teach at an upper elementary school. My principal informed me that vape detectors would be installed in bathrooms over the weekend in an elementary school. So this is something that we cannot be desensitized to. If we discover that young kids are vaping, we really have to take we really have to take a hard look at where we're coming from, and we have to start educating parents early. So we advocate for our parents to start talking to kids, as young as 7 and 8 years old, because at that age, they don't understand, danger. They don't understand addiction. So it's very important to start talking to your kids early.
We only speak to parents, and we're gonna quickly, we don't want to take up more than our allotted time. This is one of the campaigns that we speak just to parents. We don't speak to youth, but in response to so many parents who said, my kid doesn't care that it's bad for their lungs, that it's bad for their developing brain, developing lungs. But kids do care a lot about climate and justice. And so we created this program, Vapes or Trash, that gets at a very real problem, which is the environmental harms. So that's something to take a look at. We have another program we're very proud of called Poison, Parents Opposing Illegal Sales of Nicotine. It empowers parents in their own communities not to do the enforcement, but to elevate the lack of enforcement in places where there are flavor laws. We just did this in New York, and you can learn more about Poison by
scanning that QR code, or the QR code that's right there. Again, we'll hear more about school-based tobacco education programs, but these are some of the programs that we work with and that we talk about. And then, we're on social media. We reach out to parents. We have a private parent support group on social media. We have a podcast, which we're not doing currently, but we have some great episodes there. And reach out to us on social media if you want to see what's happening, the latest articles, and then scan us if you want any information, join us. But again, it's really important to educate parents, because parents and schools are a team, and you can't educate, you have to work together to help protect kids. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much. And we love Ohio. Thank you.
And just so everyone knows, the presentation, all the slides will be included in the presentation. So you'll be able to scan the QR code and get all the other data. So thank you very much, Meredith and Doran. I really appreciate your time. So I want to introduce Sarah Stapleton. Sarah is principal of Wayne High School in Wayne, West Virginia. Wayne is just south of Huntington, so it's very close to Ohio. And I went to college in Southern Ohio, so we certainly know the landscape there. Wayne High School received recognition earlier this year for its innovative approach to trying to mitigate vaping. So without further ado, Mrs. Stapleton, I'll turn it over to you. And if you can share your experiences, I'm sure the audience would really appreciate it.
Thank you, Glenn. Good morning. And once again, thank you for inviting me and allowing us to share our story. As Glenn said, a little background on our school. We're located in Southern West Virginia. We are approximately 20 miles south of Marshall University and Huntington. We have approximately 40% of our students that live 30 to 40 miles south of the school, with others having an hour bus ride each day. So we are quite rural. Our enrollment is approximately 600 students, and despite being rural, we offer many college classes and a variety of career and technical classes. To begin, our story began before the pandemic, when we had a vaping issue at Wayne High School. And at that time, the vapes that the students were using were a little bit different than the ones they are now. Those vapes were more of the big puffs and more of the scented types. And let me tell you, when you walk by a public high school boys' bathroom and it smells like cotton candy, there really isn't a carnival going on in there. After a year and a half, when schools returned to normal from the pandemic, students came back with a variety of issues. But one of those issues was no longer vaping, because vaping had become an epidemic. We spent the first several months of fall 2021 chasing our tails, trying to get the vapes out of these kids' hands. Once again, the vapes that they were using now did not have those large puffs of smoke or the real heavy scents that the ones had before, and therefore they were harder to find. In addition, the students have become surprisingly good at hiding them. On December 8, 2021, at the beginning of the second period, a teacher noticed that one of her students was not in class, and she stepped in the bathroom and found the student. The teacher, noticing signs that the student was under the influence of something, quickly brought her to the office. As the student sat in our office, her health quickly began to deteriorate to the point that she was so lethargic she could barely keep her head up. The school nurse quickly took her vitals and told us to call 911 immediately. We did manage to get her to confess that she had hit a vape and that she had given it to someone else. When the paramedics arrived, her health had deteriorated to the point that she was unconscious and Narcan had to be administered. As principals, we had seen blood, broken bones, puke, and I've even been on the scene of a student's horrific car accident. But I'd never seen a student Narcaned. As I watched the medicine work and watched her come out of it, she became so agitated and angry, and I had so many emotions and thoughts went through my head. I was shocked that this was what school had become. I was mad that she'd used the vape. I was furious that she'd been laced with something. And I was infuriated with her that she actually passed it on to someone else. And I felt responsible. Our assistant principals, myself, and a few others set out that morning to locate that vape that obviously was laced with something. We were pulling kids out of class, interviewing them, searching bathrooms and other areas. And within an hour and a half, after numerous student interviews, we located another student who had admittedly hit the same vape. And although she was under the influence, she admitted that she had passed the vape off to yet another student. And just as quickly as that first student had done, her health quickly began to deteriorate. The school nurse took her vitals and again told us to call 911. By the time the ambulance arrived, she too required a dose of Narcan. And as a principal, and I'm sorry for my emotions, I still can't go back to that day. I can assure you that all the emotions I felt after witnessing that first student receive Narcan were multiplied now. And now not only was I mad, I felt like I had failed. I had failed to keep our students safe. And now I knew we had an epidemic on our hands. 2 students in less than 2 hours requiring Narcan from a vape that had been laced with an unknown substance was simply too much. We went into overdrive that morning trying to locate that vape. We were under the clock, so to speak, because in our district, elementary and middle school students ride the same bus as our high school students. And we didn't want that vape to end up on the school bus and into the hands of a 5 or 6-year-old. We didn't know at that moment if it was a residual drug or one that had to be inhaled. Either way, if our teenage students had reacted the way they had, what would it have done to a 5-year-old? And I hate to admit, we never found that vape that day. At the end of the day, I sat with other school professionals, and I simply felt like I'd failed our school and our community. At that point in time, I wasn't keeping our students safe. And as principals, we know how to teach reading and we know how to teach math, and we're held to graduation rates and test scores. But none of those things matter if kids don't feel safe in school. If they don't feel safe at school, they cannot learn. And basically, it's that simple. There are nights as a principal that you don't sleep. And trust me, that was one night. Thinking of all the scenarios, all the what ifs, imagining what that vape had been laced with and trying to figure out where they even got it to begin with, had my thoughts racing all night long. And I got angrier by the hour that night. The next morning, I immediately began calling and reaching out to several organizations, law enforcement, organizations at Marshall University, and different health facilities. No one really offered assistance, nor did they have solutions. Many felt it was the school system's responsibility. I was even told it was my responsibility. Many felt it was the parents' fault. Everyone wanted to cast blame, and yet no one offered a solution. I even yelled one afternoon, I wish everybody would quit blaming each other and someone just help us find a solution. It was a couple weeks after that our superintendent called me one afternoon and said that Prestera, which is our local mental health facility, was going to help us, was going to be able to assist us in obtaining vape detectors. He explained that these would be installed in the student bathrooms and asked if I was interested in piloting them for Wayne County schools. I don't even think he finished his conversation before I just said, yes, we'll try anything at this point. By March 15th, 2022, the detectors had been installed and the software was downloaded. On the morning of March 16th, after first period had started, I went back to my office to start on my to-do list, which, like most principals, it was the same to-do list for 2 weeks, when I received a text alert saying, vape detected at Wayne High School 300 Hall women's restroom. I glanced over at the assistant principals to see if they'd received the same text, and after confirming they had, I ran into the 300 Hall girls' bathroom and witnessed a girl attempting to hide the vape in the sleeve of her shirt. Just looked at her, I said, give me the vape, at that point, she adamantly denied having it. At that point, we didn't want the kids to know about the detectors. We had not even told the teachers they were installed. We wanted to kind of go undercover for a while. So I convinced her that I could smell it, and I strongly encouraged her to hand it to me. She reluctantly did, and I took her to the office, called her dad, and suspended her. And that was just the beginning. We confiscated 5 vapes that day. And since that day, I'm gonna move my camera a little bit. This is what we've confiscated since that day. Our first vape that girl overdosed with is in this pile somewhere. So that is our why. That is the reason that I can say that these vape detectors work successfully. But our story didn't stop there. We realized that suspending these students was not the sole solution. We had to have a how to make the students have a why. We had to find out the students' why. Why were they vaping? And we had to give them a how, and how to overcome an addiction and how to make better choices. I'm not going to go into a lot of detail. We can talk after this presentation. But the group that we put into place is our how. On the front lines is our community and schools coordinator, which is like a graduation coach, our school social worker. And when I say these ladies have been in the trenches, I mean, they've been stuck in ditches and driveways going to meet these families. We have a juvenile young adult drug court. And if you're not familiar with drug court, it is not punitive, it's therapeutic. It can become punitive. However, it starts out as therapeutic. They provide counseling, support, and random drug testing. And if they comply by the drug court and our rules, it does not become punitive. If they fail in following the rules, it can quickly become punitive. In addition, we have a school mental health counselor who has experience counseling drug addicts. And I'm pleased to tell you that one of the girls who overdosed that December morning graduated from drug court. She will graduate from high school this year, and we've not seen her with a vape since. We had one overdose last year, which also required Narcan when she was in the ambulance. She'd been vaping outside, so there wasn't a vape detector there to assist us. And in her case, that student struggled on drug court, was removed from the home and placed in state care, and is receiving the help she needs today. The first week of school this year, the vape detectors alerted us to a bathroom, and we were able to catch a young lady selling vapes. She had 5 THC vapes, THC pods, and $100 in cash. She was sentenced to alternative school. However, if she successfully completes drug court and receives the counseling we offer and completes the curriculum that Prestera developed, her sentence will be reduced. And as of today, she is making good progress. To conclude, I would not even think of being a principal today without these vape detectors. As you install them, I strongly encourage you to put them above ceiling tiles in cages where the students cannot have access to them. In the beginning, after the students were on to us, they discovered where the detectors were, and like all smart criminals, they disconnected them. Today, our detectors are in cages above the ceiling tiles and accessible. Our incidents of vaping have reduced drastically. The spring of 2022, the vape detectors would go off as many times as 10 to 15 times a day. Now they only alert us about 2 or 3 times a day. I don't know the technology behind these detectors, but I don't need to know that. I just know that they do work. Thank you again for allowing me to share our story and our success with the detectors and our programs. Unfortunately, I think most high schools in our nation are facing the same epidemic, and the only way to help our students is to use the tools that we have, and one of those tools is learning from each other. So again, thank you.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Stapleton, for sharing your experiences. It's very profound. I'd like to introduce Derek Peterson. He's founder and CEO of Solder Technologies, which actually produces these sensors. Derek, if you can provide an overview of how the sensors work, the types of, I guess, compounds that it senses, cannabis, and along with other, tobacco, and how the technology adheres to wellness and privacy mandates.
Sure, not a problem. Can everybody see my screen?
Yep.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for having me here today. It's an honor to go after my friends Dorian and Meredith and Miss Stapleton. And Miss Stapleton, every time you show that desk full of vaping pens there, it blows my heart away and wants to bring a tear to my eye because that is not what school is about. School is about learning and having fun and having a good time, really. But unfortunately, in today's day and age, we're dealing with this vaping situation. And I'll try and be brief. And I have some slides here that we'll probably won't even get to. Just as a understanding where solder comes from. Solder Technologies, the name is inspired by the Greek god Soteris, as the god of safety. And everything we do is how do we keep people safe, specifically, how do we keep our children safe? We focus on K through 12. And the reason why I founded the company is because I've raised 2 daughters that are now off and finishing college. One's already done. But when they were in school, they were asking me, Daddy, can you help me with the jewel room? I said, what is the jewel room? The jewel room is what they were calling the bathroom. And kids were vaping in the jewel room. And they couldn't go to the bathroom anymore because there were so many other girls vaping in there. And then the other sad thing is if you weren't vaping, then you're being bullied. So the nature of an engineer is to go out and how we help solve this problem. So in 2017, we invented and released the world's first vape detector. And this detector detects not only nicotine, but also THC, and also detects progressive sounds. And as you heard from Ms. Stapleton, when it does detect these events, it's going to then send a text message to her or anybody else you put on a subscriber list. And the way simply, just a high level how the device actually works, is actually an air quality sensing device. We're actually analyzing air quality and then looking at air quality, looking for what we define as a vaping signature. And that's nothing more than a fingerprint in the air that denotes vape. So as students may spray Axe body spray or Beyonce or Taylor Swift's body spray, whatever it may be, we have to understand that those chemicals, what they call TVOCs, volatile organic compounds in the air, ignore that, ignore. Then we finally see the vape in the air. We send an instant text message to anybody on its subscriber list, which could be a principal, superintendent, a teacher in a nearby classroom, a security resource officer, or anyone that the school determines should be able to respond back to that. And one of the things that you've heard from Ms. Staples, you talked about, is that the first day they put the devices in, they wanted to get an understanding of how the overall, where's the hot points of vaping, where are kids vaping, and so let it go in stealth mode. And then after that, you form, quote unquote, a plan of attack on how to combat this. And as you can see, it's been proven effective. My best dream would be I wake up tomorrow morning and then nobody's vaping and we go off as a company and do something different. This is not what I woke up and every morning did. I want to help kids stop vaping or create devices like this. But we focus here at Solder Technologies more on the the wellness side and also the safety side. And so let me talk to you about what the device also does. Inside the device, there is no cameras. There's also no microphones. There's no recording of any student information whatsoever. It's got zero privacy issues. It's simply a smart device. Within this world, we call it IoT device, and we use acronyms. It stands for Internet of Things. And if you want to continue with the acronyms, it also has a little AI, artificial intelligence in it. And it's just looking for what we define as a vaping signature. And so it's not tracking anybody. We don't know the specific name of a student in the bathroom. That's not up to us. We just want to alert administration that there is an event going on in a location where you cannot put a camera and you cannot put a microphone due to privacy issues. We've been very effective of doing this. We have roughly about over close to 40,000 devices deployed in over 30 countries in every state. So it has proven very effective. And then continuing on, our mission as an organization, as a company, and my friends here on this panel will also let you know, they will tell you the same thing. We're here really just to improve student wellness and safety. That's what we're about. How do we have students go back to school and have fun again? Allow students to be students, and let bathrooms be bathrooms, and just keep it simple. Let's not turn our bathrooms into prisons. Unfortunately, I've seen some of my, I would say, competitors come into the market making similar devices, and they're putting so much information into these devices where they're trying to do way too much. We focus on very simple. Let me tell you when somebody's vaping. Let me tell you when somebody's possibly being bullied by looking at aggressive sound, and that's it. I don't need to add in a million other things, gunshot detection, this detection. It's a bathroom. Let's keep it simple, and let's let the kids be kids. And that's all I want to share with everybody today. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Derek. Actually, we had one question. I thought maybe, someone asked about disposing vapes. They've had one of the attendees said they've had problems disposing vapes, and this is for the group. Has there been any other problems, or have there been solutions that you've seen out there for disposal?
Well, if I could just jump in, there
Sure.
was a recent article by the Associated Press that we helped with. And it's very difficult to dispose of vapes. They're very hard to recycle. They contain lithium ion batteries. They contain the toxic nicotine, liquid nicotine. They contain metals and plastics. And so every person, every school, every district has to contact their local sanitation department. They cannot be thrown in the trash. They're ending up, that's part of our Vape Start Trash project. They're ending up in waterways, they're ending up in landfills. And in New York, the sheriff, when he seizes them, spends millions of dollars to send it to a place, I believe it's in Arkansas, to dispose of them. Okay. Because there is nowhere in New York. So
it cannot go in the household garbage. And really, FDA never pushed these companies to give consumer guidance from 2016 until 2020 about what to do with them. I know, Mrs. Stapleton, you end up with you could end up with hundreds and hundreds. And
your local sanitation department.
Right. I think there are 400,000 disposable vapes that are used in this country that are thrown away in this country every day.
It's 4.5 disposed of every second of every day.
So the suggestion then is go to the local sanitation authority and see what
and ask them what to do.
Okay.
In Ohio, our waste disposal will not accept them. Batteries Plus will accept them. I think there's a minimal charge for disposal, but Batteries Plus will accept them for disposal. And I would encourage school employees that piling them up could potentially cause a fire. So that's not a safe way to keep them. And always use a plastic glove when you handle them, because they will leak nicotine, and you have to be very cautious.
One creative solution for educators. There are, like with all your free time educating our children, I know nobody has, but there are academic institutions that are doing research into the harms that these products are causing. And some of them are very grateful actually to receive them. As I said, I'm sure there's not a lot of time for that, but it is something to think about creatively.
Yep. And that's a great, so Ohio State, they are a tobacco research facility, And so you could certainly check with Ohio State.
Okay, thank you, everyone. I want to introduce Mirko Notarangelo with ICAS. So ICAS is a certified reseller of the solder technology. So Mirko, if you can just kind of just go through the installation process, what's involved in terms of installing the sensors and potentially linking it up with other systems the school may have, security, things like that. And if you can just touch on that, that'd be great.
Yeah. So good morning, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here. So, yeah, I will provide a brief overview of the license installation process, focusing in particular on the physical aspects of the installation. And the critical, importance of proper execution. So the first step is registering your school or organization through the license web portal to create your organization's account. And after that, you'll be ready for the onboarding session. This is essentially a training session that covers all the features, helping users become familiar with the product and the technology, and ensuring that your organization fully utilizes the device's capabilities. As for the physical installation, it just includes configuring the power source and mounting the device. It's a straightforward process. But it needs to be done correctly. This is why, even though it's user friendly, we strongly recommend professional installation. It should be done by an IT team member or authorized installer with the necessary technical expertise for this. So. The device is mounted onto the ceiling, typically with 2 screws, and the hardware that you will use depends on the kind of a ceiling. You can provide power to the device using a PoE that can deliver electrical power and data. So this is strongly recommended. You can also use power the device with a AC power supplies, but we recommend a PoE. The vape detector provides a coverage of 10 by 10 by 9, so the equivalent of 3 bathroom stalls. And before installing the device, it's recommended to inspect the installation area, considering the surrounding and the vaping patterns. When choosing the installation location, consider areas where vaping incidents are frequent and known to occur. So I would say that the system integrates perfectly with camera systems and access control. And obviously, we can provide assistance in integrating the device with your existing security system.
So it could be augmented to an existing security system
Yes.
fairly seamlessly. Great. Thank you, Mirko. Appreciate that.
Pleasure.
I'm going to turn it back to Bruce. Bruce had some information to share regarding funding. We did get a couple of other questions. We will get to those after Bruce's portion, and then we'll also let you know where you can get the presentation and follow up with for more information. So Bruce? While we're doing that, we did have a comment from one of the attendees, Jeff Beal, who said that the Drug Enforcement Administration holds a National Take Back Day every year in April, and that they accept vapes and cartridges, including batteries. So I just wanted to pass that along. Thank you very much, Jeff, for that information.
And that's a great suggestion. Just check with your local take back organization. I'm the chair of the Ohio Tobacco organization, and we just had that conversation last month, and many don't in the state of Ohio. So just check to be sure that they do.
All right, so why don't we, while we look for the slides, we had one more comment. There's also seems another Take Back event in October as well. So, Bruce, why don't you just share the information? We'll look for the slides and just keep things
Okay.
going.
Yeah. And so just several things before I share those. There are creative ways, and Principal Stapleton certainly shared that she was able to get help through their mental health organization. There are prevention coalitions that you could certainly go to, but then there are also opportunities through some different funding sources. And in the state of Ohio, you can get information through the Student Recovery Dashboard from the Ohio Department of Education. And the director there is Jana Ferrano, the executive director, Future Forward Ohio. And I spoke to her just a few weeks ago about the ESSER funding that is still available. And several things that you need to know in accessing those fundings. There are broad categories for the use of those funds, right? And so several of the categories then for using those funds for purchasing the detectors would be such things as providing principals or other school leaders with resources necessary to address the needs of individual schools. So you can easily see, as a broad category, purchasing detectors for that purpose fits that. Implementing evidence-based activities to meet the comprehensive needs of students, that fits. And then one more, other activities necessary to maintain the operation and and continuity of school services. School services are certainly disrupted by vaping of students. We see all the time, and we've heard how disruptive they are to the classroom. And so that would be a category that would certainly fit that. So I was going to share with you then several slides when you go in to look at the dashboards, and we'll make sure that we have those slides for you. But in the dashboards, you will find a first category is the ESSER awards associated by breakdowns. And so there is the total awards for the state and unclaimed amounts for the state. Let's see. For the entire state, there's an unclaimed amount of $1.7 billion. $1.7 billion that's unclaimed yet. And then there's a breakdown of all of the ESSER 1, ESSER 2, ESSER 2 supplement, ARP ESSER, ARP ESSER supplement. And so there's a breakdown of all of those. Then you can go to by the district. And so you can click into a district. So I went to a district of a large city district as an example. So they had a total of 463 $1.73 million ESSER awards, and unspent yet is $151.13 million unspent. And then, so those are the totals, but then you go down by each grant name, and you can see the dollar amount for each one. So again, we'll make sure that we send those out to everyone. Oh, there we go.
Okay. So
yeah.
So
if you could
Bruce, why don't we
slide
just
through.
recap from the beginning, just way everyone
Yeah.
has the visuals.
Okay, so I don't know if I can click through those. John, click through, go to number 5. There you go. So you'll see here the ESSER and the dashboard. So if you click on ESSER at the very top, you get this. So go to 6. So here is, like I said, on the dashboard, the total amount in the state, the amount of dollars, and you see the $1.7 billion, and then down below the grant names of what's spent, and then the last one, number 7, that's the large school district and the dollar amount that they were awarded, and then the different categories. And you can see several of them, quite a few of them, they've spent the total amount, but then there are still, with a sizable amount of dollars that they've not spent. And then, so the thing that I would tell you, a school district, even if they've made application for, so some of these categories that they have dollars that, and they may have sent an application to spend, if they've not spent those dollars yet, and now they decide that they want to use those dollars for detectors, they are allowed to resubmit for reappropriations of those funds. So that can still be done as long as they've not spent those dollars. They can have reappropriation of those dollars. So each school district can look and see how much they have left in these dollars and use them to purchase detectors. So I just wanted to share that with you. There are multiple ways, through coalitions, through local ATOM boards, and then through ESSER funds, as well as their general budgets for these devices.
Thank you, Bruce. We had a couple of questions. Appreciate that. And all this information, as I said, will be available in the recording. And we'll be able to provide you the information on how to retrieve the recording. We did have a question. Well, first a comment. One of our attendees said that there are multiple take-back organizations and the check, and they happen throughout the year. So there are different groups that do that. So that's one way to dispose the vapes. We do have a question about alternate suspension programs, if anyone has found those to be effective. So I open that up to the group. If anyone has some experience with that or some insight, that'd be great.
I'm going to I want to just say one thing, and then I'll defer to Mrs. Stapleton, who is living this on the ground in real time. But this is a real an issue that we feel very strongly about, working across the country. And I think we alluded to it earlier. You know, you don't punish a child for addiction. You support that child and you partner with the family to provide them with whatever resources they need or that are out there. So we really encourage our parents and all parents to see the educators as their partners. Again, it doesn't mean that there are no rules. It doesn't mean that there are no consequences. That's obviously very important in raising and educating children,
Right.
but punish children for an addiction that was pushed upon this generation by predatory tobacco companies making endless profits seems wrong-headed at best. And
Right. We have we have a bunch of resources on the slides that we kind of skimmed through, but there are lots of resources. And I know Mrs. Stapleton has her own program, which is wonderful.
I really like to promote schools are looking for easy alternative to suspensions and a no cost. So the Stanford program has
That's on our slide too.
Has multiple levels, a 1 hour, a 2 hour, and a 4 hour. And the American Lung Association has an alternative to suspension. And in the past, you've had to have a facilitator. This fall, they've created a virtual platform for that. So that means the student can take it on their own and then just verify with an administrator.
Right.
Okay.
With
Well,
our program, everything is school-based. So like the probation officers with drug court, they come to the school. Everybody is centered here at the school. And you know, what we found is sometimes the parents aren't the best adult in that child's life. And so it is through the drug court program, the probation officers and our team here, that we've provided those supports for them. And that's something that you really need to look at. Kids won't go off campus to get help. So we have to help them here. And that works well for us.
well, thank you, everyone. I hope this was valuable for the attendees, and I hope it gives you some ideas on what you can do in your schools to not only acquire these solutions, but also get funding for those as well. So again, I want to thank our speakers. I want to thank Bruce, Mrs. Stapleton, Meredith, Dorian, Derek, and Mirko. We're happy to provide any other information you need. So it's icascorp.com/webinar-contact. So again, feel free to reach out if you have any questions. Our speakers will be happy to speak with you one-on-one, and appreciate all your time. Thank you.